What if I told you that one of the most iconic speeches in film history wasn't even from the Bible? That the mysterious briefcase everyone still debates today was never meant to have an answer? Or that John Travolta, who delivered one of his career-defining performances in Pulp Fiction, was considered practically irrelevant before Quentin Tarantino gave him a second chance? Pulp Fiction isn't just a movie. It's a maze of secrets, happy accidents, and bizarre behind-the-scenes choices that turned into movie history. Every scene is packed with small details that you probably missed the first dozen times you watched it. And that's why nearly 30 years later, people are still discovering new things hidden inside this cult classic. Today, we're going to uncover 24 hidden secrets about Pulp Fiction that even die-hard fans might not know. Some will make you laugh, some will completely change how you see certain characters, and a few might just blow your mind. So sit back, because what you're about to hear will prove that Tarantino's masterpiece was never just about gangsters and twist contests. It was about reinventing cinema itself. Samuel L. Jackson's character, Jules Winfield, is unforgettable for many reasons. His cool demeanor, his sharp dialogue, and, of course, that chilling speech he delivers before taking care of business, the path of the righteous man. Fans quoted it endlessly, convinced it was lifted straight from the Bible. But here's the secret. Most of it isn't biblical at all. Only fragments of that speech actually come from Ezekiel 25:17. The rest was borrowed from a 1976 Japanese martial arts film called The Bodyguard. Tarantino, a self-confessed film junkie, stitched it together to create something that sounded holy, poetic, and intimidating all at once. Why does this matter? Because it tells us exactly what Tarantino was doing with Pulp Fiction. He wasn't just writing dialogue, he was creating mythology. By giving Jules a passage that felt ancient and profound, he elevated him from a street hitman into something larger than life, almost a prophet. And it worked. Jackson himself has said that the moment he read that monologue, he knew the role was his. It became the performance that launched him from working actor to superstar. But here's the kicker. Audiences who thought they were hearing biblical scripture were actually witnessing Tarantino's remixing genius. He blurred the line between sacred text and cinematic invention, which is exactly what gave Pulp Fiction its strange, timeless power. Audiences who later learned about the martial arts film connection often said it changed the way they watched Jules. Instead of a hitman quoting scripture, he became a man clinging to borrowed wisdom in a chaotic world. That duality, half preacher, half movie fan, mirrored Tarantino himself, who built his career on remixing pop culture into something new. And if you think that was a bold choice, wait until you hear what Tarantino did with John Travolta. An actor who was all but written off before this film pulled him back from the edge. Before 1994, John Travolta's career wasn't just in decline, it was practically over. Hollywood insiders labeled him as cold as they get. His early triumphs like Saturday Night Fever and Grease were distant memories, and by the early 90s, he was known more for flops than hits. Studios didn't see him as bankable anymore, but Quentin Tarantino did. When he was writing Vincent Vega, he wanted someone who could surprise audiences, someone who didn't feel like the obvious choice. He took a huge gamble casting Travolta, and the risk paid off spectacularly. Travolta's slow, almost hypnotic performance brought Vincent Vega to life in a way no one expected. The character was cool, detached, and oddly lovable despite his flaws. This wasn't just a comeback, it was resurrection. Travolta earned an Oscar nomination, became a sought-after leading man again, and even landed roles in blockbusters like Face Off and Get Shorty. For years afterward, he credited Tarantino with saving his career, and that career revival all started with a filmmaker who believed Travolta still had something special left to give. Industry insiders thought Tarantino was crazy for casting Travolta. One producer said audiences would laugh at the idea of the former disco star as a gangster. Instead, his slow, deliberate delivery and physical presence became instantly iconic. But Travolta's rebirth wasn't the only piece of improvisation in this film's legacy. In fact, one of its most famous scenes, the Jack Rabbit Slims dance, wasn't even choreographed. The twist contest at Jack Rabbit Slims is one of the most memorable scenes in Pulp Fiction. John Travolta and Uma Thurman stepping onto that dance floor has become iconic. But here's what most people don't realize. There was no fixed choreography. Tarantino simply told them to dance. The result was a blend of Travolta's natural rhythm and Thurman's playful energy. The director's inspiration came from old European dance contests he had seen on television, where ordinary people would improvise instead of following a strict routine. That freedom gave the scene its magic. What makes the dance scene even more special is that it was filmed in a single night, with almost no rehearsal. Thurman admitted she was nervous, but Travolta told her it wasn't about perfect moves, It was about character. That turned it from a dance contest into a revealing moment for Mia and Vincent. Because it wasn't locked into a specific dance trend, it didn't age badly. Instead, it remains fresh every time you watch it. And all of this happened because Tarantino trusted his actors to find the moment on their own. Of course, while the dance floor felt free, the money behind the movie was anything but loose. Most big Hollywood films pay their stars wildly different salaries depending on status. But Pulp Fiction broke the mold. Every actor, whether it was Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, or John Travolta, was paid the same flat rate, $20,000 per week. On top of that, they received a percentage of the box office profits. It was an unusual move, but it worked. For one, it made the ensemble feel truly equal, which was crucial because Pulp Fiction was never about one star. It was about intersecting stories and characters all carrying the same weight. This unusual pay structure also meant that stars who were used to huge upfront salaries had to gamble on Tarantino's vision. Bruce Willis, for instance, could have demanded millions, but he agreed to the deal because he believed in the project. That collective leap of faith bonded the cast in a way that made their performances feel more authentic on screen, and it did blow up. The movie was made on a modest budget of just $8.5 million, with $5 million of that going directly to actor salaries. That relatively small investment turned into hundreds of millions at the box office worldwide. But money wasn't the only thing drawing headlines. The movie's language set off just as much debate as its structure. Pulp Fiction isn't just famous for its style, it's infamous for its language. The movie contains 265 uses of the F-word, contributing to a total of 431 curse words. At the time, critics were outraged. Parents groups labeled it toxic for younger audiences, and some reviewers argued Tarantino was trying to shock for the sake of it. But here's the truth. The language was part of the design. Tarantino wanted characters who sounded real, raw, funny, vulgar, and unpredictable. The profanity wasn't just shock value, it was rhythm. It gave the dialogue a pulse that made even mundane conversations like talking about burgers in Europe feel electric. Even critics who slammed the film's language had to admit it was strangely hypnotic. Roger Ebert described the dialogue as obscene poetry, capturing how the profanity gave every line an unforgettable edge. Far from alienating audiences, it drew them deeper. But not every shocking moment was about words. Some were about clever tricks with the camera, like the unforgettable adrenaline shot scene. The image of John Travolta slamming a needle into Uma Thurman's chest is burned into movie history. It's shocking, visceral, and unforgettable. But here's how they pulled it off. They filmed it in reverse. Instead of stabbing forward, Travolta actually pulled the needle away. Then the footage was played backward, creating the illusion of impact. This simple trick made the scene both safe and terrifying. It's proof of Tarantino's creativity on a modest budget. Uma Thurman later joked that she hated needles, and filming the scene over and over gave her chills every time. But because the trick was so effective, viewers still squirm watching it today. That reaction is proof that sometimes the cheapest trick is the most powerful. But while special effects could be faked, one mystery could never be solved: the glowing briefcase. The mysterious briefcase is one of cinema's great unsolved puzzles. Fans have speculated endlessly. Was it full of gold? Was it Marcellus Wallace's soul? Was it Hollywood itself? Here's what Tarantino has said: it was a MacGuffin. It didn't matter what was inside. The briefcase was simply a device to drive the story forward. The combination, 666, was a playful nod to its aura, but it was never meant to have a definitive answer. Tarantino himself once laughed when asked about the briefcase, saying fans had written entire essays on something he made up as a narrative device. By refusing to answer the question, he gave audiences permission to invent their own answers. But that wasn't the only connection Tarantino slipped into the movie. One of its biggest secrets is that Pulp Fiction is part of a bigger family tree. Vincent Vega isn't an only child. He's the brother of Vic Vega, Mr. Blonde from Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino even planned a prequel called Double V Vega. It would have followed the brothers in Amsterdam. The project never happened, but fans still dream about what it could have been. Forums are full of imagined plots, wild adventures, even backstories explaining Vincent's calm attitude towards sudden violence. In a way, the fans created it themselves. But the Vega brothers weren't the only casting twist. Some of Hollywood's biggest names came close to starring. Michael Madsen was originally offered Vincent Vega, but turned it down for Wyatt Earp. That decision strained his friendship with Tarantino. Gary Oldman was considered for multiple roles. Matt Dillon nearly played Butch but hesitated. Bruce Willis swooped in instead. Mia Wallace could have been Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Michelle Pfeiffer, or even Meg Ryan. Uma Thurman initially hesitated, but Tarantino convinced her. it became her defining role. Imagine Mia Wallace, played by Meg Ryan, bringing romantic comedy charm to a dark role, or Matt Dillon as Butch. These what-ifs show how easily cinema history could have looked different. And Tarantino himself wasn't above leaving his own belongings in the film. Remember Jules' wallet with "Bad Mofo" written on it? That was Tarantino's own wallet. Vincent Vega's car, the cherry red 1964 Chevelle Malibu, was also Tarantino's. It was stolen after filming and vanished for 19 years. When Tarantino's car was recovered nearly 2 decades later, the driver didn't even know its history. The story made headlines worldwide, proof of how even small details from Pulp Fiction entered pop culture. Even Tarantino's friendships mattered. Robert Rodriguez directed Tarantino's scenes as Jimmy while Tarantino acted. But not every detail was planned. Some quirks were total accidents. Take Ving Rhames. The band-aid on his neck wasn't symbolic. It was just a shaving accident. Fans turned it into one of the film's biggest mysteries. The Gimp scene was supposed to feature My Sharona, but the band refused. The replacement track changed the tone entirely. And the Dutch references, like Royale with cheese, came from Tarantino writing the script in Amsterdam. That tendency for fans to spin theories out of accidents is part of why the film feels eternal. The Hawthorne Grill, where the diner scenes were filmed, became a pilgrimage site for fans. People sat in the booths just to feel part of the film's world. At the box office, Pulp Fiction was a slow build. It took 178 days to cross $100 million domestically. That word-of-mouth momentum gave it grassroots energy. The slow build success also proved it wasn't just a fad. It endured because people debated it, spread it, obsessed over it, and some details came from real Hollywood inspirations. Winston Wolfe, played by Harvey Keitel, was inspired by real Hollywood cleaners. Tarantino exaggerated the myth, but insiders whispered about figures like him in Los Angeles. Harvey Keitel's calm authority made the role unforgettable. Some claim they know the real fixer who inspired him, but Tarantino has never confirmed. That uncertainty only adds to the aura, and that blending of myth and reality brings us to the biggest secret of all. When you look back at Pulp Fiction, it isn't just the structure, the violence, or the dialogue that make it legendary. It's the secrets. Some were intentional, some were happy accidents, but all of them gave audiences endless reasons to rewatch. The briefcase, the band-aid, the Ezekiel speech, none of them had a single clear answer. They kept us wondering. And that's why nearly 30 years later, people still debate the film. In the end, the magic of Pulp Fiction isn't in answers, but in the questions. Props, lines, and improvised moments feel like clues to a bigger puzzle. That's why people return again and again. It doesn't just tell a story, it invites us to join one.